Hello everyone. Don't be alarmed. I'm here with David Winston, and we were planning to do this live from David's studio. From David's studio, from his darkroom studio. But obviously, turn the Sorry, we've got the sound up on the other. But we couldn't because of the Wi-Fi signal. So David has come scooting through from his studio, and this is how he works generally. So masks are not a thing. He's not worried about masks. If you see him wandering around Cranbrook dressed like this, just say hi. So David, tell us what you're wearing. People are getting scared by this.
It's just nowadays we develop to be a bit more
You'll
careful.
have to take it off to talk because we
Yeah,
can't
let
hear
me
you.
move on. I'm often accused of being this person, for those of you who may recognize him. But nowadays we know to be much more careful using chemicals. So I'm really careful. It does look like I have a meth lab in my garage, but I assure you I don't. If the police are listening, you're welcome to come take a look and check it out.
I was just saying to you, wasn't I? Because obviously I do photography, and I did all the analog photography with a lot of you doing a lot of similar processes to you. And as soon as I had my first charge, I was like, nope, that's it. I can't do it because the chemicals are scary. Very, very scary. They're very dangerous. And that's why, as a photographer doing that process, it's really important to wear
Yeah.
all that kit.
I'm not ashamed to be taking lots of precautions, and
Good.
the toxic stuff gets collected and carried away and reprocessed and stuff like that because I don't want to mess around.
Yeah, you can't just throw it down the sink.
No.
That's that's something I learned quite quickly 20 odd years ago when I started doing when I did my diploma, and then I started practicing as a photographer, and I had like this lovely little dark room. I was like, oh, what do I do now? And then I spoke to my tutor, and they're like, oh, you can't just throw it down the sink. I was like, it got all very, very scary. So you go to work and it's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty careful.
We're going to hear all about all the processes. I know, because we've been chatting about them, and I'm really intrigued to hear how you use them. But first of all, I think it'd be really nice if you can just tell us a bit about the background. I know you were born in LA, and now you live obviously in the UK in Cranbrook, but sometimes in Venice as well. So it'd be really nice to hear your backstory. Just how you grew up, what the influences were, etc.
Yeah, well, I grew up in LA in the 50s, and it was a kind of charmed childhood, actually. I mean, it was safe. You could play baseball in the streets. The weather was beautiful. And the thing that influenced my photography is that my father constantly had a camera in his hand. He was sort of like a Vivian Maier street photographer. And that was a real influence on me. I mean, we used to complain that he was constantly taking pictures. But now I'm glad he did. We have such a record of everything. And it was just a great influence on me, just observing him, really. And I have pictures of myself with a camera in my hand, sort of age 7, I think. So I've always been doing it.
And did you do photography as through your education? Was that something you went straight into?
I, like many kids from LA, I moved to San Francisco in the 60s, and I did spend a couple of terms doing film and photography at the San Francisco Art Institute. But to be honest, I remember very little about it. I just know that I went.
And what did you do after that?
Well, my day job has been as a maker and restorer of musical instruments. So I've been doing that since I was 21 years old, and
we can see one of the beautiful pieces.
Yeah, that's a harpsichord behind us. But actually, the two are somehow linked because I spend a lot of time in my restoration of musical instruments looking for lost sounds. And I do the same thing with my photography. I'm kind of looking for lost images, lost techniques. And things that have sort of disappeared, and recreating the past. So they are, in a strange way, linked. And I often use certain kind of musical motifs in some of my photographs. For example, I have a whole series of nocturnes, Venice nocturnes, and they're really based on the musical form of the nocturne, which is basically just a suggestion and a mood. It's not a full, heavy structure. It's just a sense of something, and that's the kind of photography that interests me much more. I'm not interested in doing a perfectly exposed image that just records what the camera saw. I'm not trying to do that at all.
When did you first realize that photography was your artistic medium then?
Well, I mean, I've always done it, but about the last 6 years, I've been working on it much more in earnest. It just started that I wanted to give a present to somebody of some images of Bedgebury Forest, and I decided I didn't want to just do straight photographic images. So I started researching all these old processes, and then I became completely addicted. It's absolutely a sort of endless research, and you go down so many different paths, you learn so many different things, and you're constantly changing and discarding ideas, trying new ones. It's been a really interesting journey.
And where do you research those processes?
Well, there is information out there. There are quite a lot of people actually doing these old processes now. So there are books out there with some information, but also at the beginning, I just bought old books through used bookshops and things like that. I have, for example, that's this one here. It's called How to Make and Take Photographs. How to take and fake photographs. And this is published in about 1920. And it's full of information about all these old techniques.
So do you have some examples of some of the earliest stuff that you were making then? So you're saying about 6 years ago you started on this journey. Do you have some of the early things?
Yeah, the first things I did were using, I'll get up in a second, were platinum palladium prints, which is a sepia print process. It's very complicated, but the images are somehow simpler. They're not as satisfying for me now. I don't do it very often, but I'll show you an example. So that is I suppose it doesn't look like much on this computer screen, but that's platinum.
It looks beautiful.
That's a platinum palladium print of a palazzo on the Grand Canal, and you can get these lovely ranges of sepia tones using them. But I've started going down different paths now, combining all the different processes, and I'll show you, for example.
Yeah. So just tell us what the different processes are that you're combining.
Well, this is something I did quite a long time ago. It was a commission. It was for a gallery where we had to respond to some writing. Each artist was given some words, and we had to respond to it. And I had to respond to a poem about an owl flying through the woods at night. And what this is, it started out. So I did this quite a long time ago, and it started out as that, printed on very thin Japanese tissue paper. So the image is on a translucent paper. And then I backed it with gold and silver leaf to create this completely different image. And then it's varnished to make it more transparent. You can get some wonderful effects.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that was quite an early one as well. So
that was quite an early one, and I also did the same thing using that Japanese paper where I used different types of leaf. So there's copper leaf and gold leaf and silver leaf there. And it's very interesting. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's not it's not entirely predictable, but when it works, it's really
And
satisfying.
you're applying the gold leaf and the copper leaf, etc., after you've created
Yeah,
the
I'll show you.
print.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's, don't
Hopefully,
worry.
you didn't break anything.
No, I didn't. It's on the back of the print.
Right. Oh, I see. So it's very, very thin, as you say, very thin paper. So that's a platinum print, though.
Yeah, and then printed onto a Japanese paper, and then I apply the using the actual real gold leaf and the proper gold leafing process. It's not gold paint.
Wow. So you started out experimenting with surface, effectively.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these were the kind of the earliest things I was doing. I was already not satisfied. I mean, just doing a normal. I'll show you just a straight black and white print I did a long time ago. Um, this is just a straight black and white print of
So it's just the straightforward black and white in the enlarger print.
yeah. So, but I almost never do that anymore.
That's an
I,
incredibly popular picture, though, isn't it? Because I think when you exhibited with me the first time, which has got to be about 5 years ago now, I think,
yeah,
at Wing Gallery,
that's right.
we sold one of those, didn't we?
Yeah, you did.
And it got a lot of interest. I think
Yeah,
it's very enigmatic, isn't it? That face just
yeah,
like going off into the way you've balanced it in the image as well.
yeah. What's interesting is I submitted that image to a photo competition, to two different photo competitions. In one, I was shortlisted. And the other competition, the guy said, I don't know why you even submitted that. That has no artistic value whatsoever. And why is the man so far to the right?
And it just
So,
that just goes to show that this is
yeah,
not a competition. It's
yeah,
all about taste, and everybody there's something out there
exactly.
that will appeal to everyone.
Yeah,
That's a classic example, isn't it? That's
yeah,
why rejection is not rejection, guys. When we've been talking about this, it's just someone's opinion. It's
yeah,
just on the day, and
yeah,
that is absolutely proves that point 100%. You've got two opportunities, and one thinks it's brilliant, and the other one doesn't get it at all.
yeah. And you've got to just take it on the chin. I
You just
mean,
have to take it.
I often wonder, and there's always this question: can artists survive just in a complete vacuum without any feedback? Just create the art for nobody, and nobody sees it. I don't think so. I think I would lose the motivation. I need the feedback.
I think it depends on your why. Just depends on why you're doing it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And also your tendencies, your personality tendencies. You know, you're a very sociable person who likes to be out there, and other people aren't. So yeah, it just depends on your tendencies as to how you pursue your career. You've been someone who's travelled a lot. So, you know, you go to Venice, don't you, regularly? You've just come back
yeah,
from Venice, haven't you?
yeah. I have. Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a big motivation in your work, isn't it?
yeah. It is. Well, I've had an apartment in Venice for about nearly 3 years now. I mean, I went there just for Carnivale several years ago, and then I ended up having an exhibition there, and I kept going back, and I made friends with the people who put on the exhibition, and I kept going back, and I thought, why not just rent someplace and make a whole life there? So, I mean, before COVID, I was spending as much as 2 weeks every month there, and it's an interesting kind of double life. I never knew
Yeah.
really where I was.
And so it's not surprising that there's a lot of the imagery that you're producing has Venice as a reference point, is it?
Yeah, what's interesting about taking pictures of Venice is that I've people think it's so easy because it's so beautiful, but I think it's actually really a difficult place to take photographs of, to capture the essence of the place without making a cliche photograph of a gondolier going down the Grand Canal and that's it. And I mean, what my Venice photographs are to me is the image that remains in my head when I get home that at the end of the day. what I've seen. So it's as it actually has in memory and my sort of sensibilities, it transformed the whole image into something else, and that's what I'm trying to get in the photograph. So you just get this feeling of what of the emotion rather than just a postcard photograph. And when you live in Venice, you really kind of get under its skin, and especially walking home late at night after you've had too much prosecco and things like that. You do get a real feel for the atmosphere. That's magical.
And is that what motivates you to, as you were saying earlier, explore these different and historical processes to see whether any of these will get you to that magic?
Yeah, exactly. Some of the images, especially, for example, a lot of the multiple exposures that I do. I'll show you an example. I'm just going to walk away from the camera for a second.
Okay. Everyone knows this is my horror moment when no one comes back or the computer falls over.
I'm back. I don't know if you can see. So this is a multiple.
Yeah.
This is a multiple exposure because you see how many times the gondola has repeated itself.
And did you do this? So I know a lot of yours is done in the camera.
It's done in the camera.
Yeah.
And
how do you do that then?
I'm not going to tell you.
You're not going to tell us.
But what
That's a secret.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to do is get away from this whole idea that a photographic image is a single brief caught moment. Rather, instead, it's a series of moments combined. It's an image in transition. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what memory is too. When you have a memory of an image, it's like a deck of cards flipping through your head. And it's all those things combined that create a completely different image than just what a camera sees. And that's what I'm trying to portray.
Blue is a key color.
Yeah.
Could you explain to people who are watching why blue? It's the cyanotype process, and can you tell us a bit about that and what draws you into that color?
Well, the cyanotype process is a really interesting early process. It's similar to old blueprint processes. It's one of the simplest ones to use and also the cheapest to use. You can afford to make a lot of mistakes, but when you get it right, it's a really beautiful color. And I think that the Venetian night is a kind of black, inky blue. And the cyanotype really kind of lends itself to that sort of image. And here's another cyanotype. And if you look, what I've been experimenting with here is I'm actually framing them with words, and I'm not going to hold up the frame with too much reflection, but I call this the starlight gondola, and the words that go with it is in the dark Venetian night. The starlight gondola carries its stars down the silent canals, and this is the gondola carrying its stars through Venice. And so I'm trying to create a narrative by actually including words in the frame now. It's kind of risky business because some people might think the words are rubbish, but I'll take that risk.
And I can see that that's unusual because you've gone back to that surface thing again, haven't you? Where you're playing with how you print it right up to the edge with the deckled edge.
Yeah. And I'll show you something else with cyanotype that's interesting. What you can do by combining it with another process, with the gum bichromate process, which is a really interesting process where you mix watercolor pigments with the chemicals. And you can use water. You have a wash of watercolor, and as many colors as are available in watercolor. You have that option to use them in the photographs. And what you can do, for example, is this is a cyanotype, almost straight cyanotype, and then by combining it with gum bichromate, black using black watercolor pigments, you end up with this. And so it's beautifully atmospheric.
Yeah. It goes very otherworldly, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I like when you see the brush strokes from applying the chemicals along here. I don't want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can go really wrong, of course. And you can, but also you can. This started out as a cyanotype, and I put a red gum bichromate across over the top to make a different effect again.
It really does make it very. It's the ghostliness of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you say, you love the magic, don't you? And I think that's those two combinations of those processes. But you always go for these quite earthy colours. Is that intentional? You're using
Well,
quite earthy colours.
yeah, but you say that, but I've also been experimenting with using, in the gum bichromate, with using iridescent and metallic colors.
Have you?
For example, you probably won't be able to see it on the screen. This is a gum bichromate using a red, green, and blue value. So you have to have a negative for each value, one for red, one for each value. But you probably can't see, but there are actually metallic pigments on this image. But I don't think it's going to show up on the screen. But
no, it's not showing up so much for us. But I wonder, are any of these on your website?
Yes, the resolution will be better on the website.
So let's have a look on your website. Let's bring your website up, and then we can maybe have a look at them on there, because it'll probably show up better. So hang on a sec. Let's get it back to, where would it be on which page? Do you remember which page it might be on? Let's bring your website up. That's your home page.
Yeah. Now, if you go to portfolio.
Yeah.
Let me see. Probably that one is probably on alternative processes link.
Alternative processes. There we go. Oh, there we go. Look at it. Immediately came up. Oh, and you can see, can't you? Now you can see the shimmering, as you say.
Yeah.
On the all around the right hand side there as well. Amazing. So this is quite a recent piece. You can see a lot more detail on the thing he's holding as well. What is that? It's like a staff, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is Carnival.
This was taken during Carnival, which a photographer is a kind of paradox.
So what other things on your website should you direct us to? So
well, an interesting one is something completely different. If you want to click on juxtapositions, that's a more straight photography. You'll see something. Okay. I'm very intrigued by things that happen.
Yeah, I love that. That's fabulous.
That was actually a really strange shop in Venice, and that's a busker who dresses as Charlie Chaplin. But I just managed to catch him at the right moment. But so I also do these sort of straight photographs of strange sort of happenings.
Yeah. Oh wow! Look at that one. These are great. Brilliant. I love it. So we'll come off of there, bring you back up on the screen, because we really want to hear more about you. But it's really important to see those images in the clarity, and the best way to show them is to have a look on your website. So you've got some more images down the side. So you've mentioned gum bichromate and cyanotype and platinum print. What about the chlorophyll process you were mentioning as well?
It's a really intriguing process. This is just a big leaf, and it's a photograph of two scuba divers, and I call it leaf divers, as if they're actually diving in the leaf.
It's upside down. You need to flip it over. got it
Oh,
upside down.
sorry. I wondered why it looked so strange.
They're kind of slightly drowning.
Yeah, there you are. Now you can see what they are.
That's better. So how did talk us through that? Because I'm
Yeah,
completely, my mind is blown by that. That's on a
yeah.
leaf.
It's a very unpredictable process. You use no chemicals at all. You just start with a leaf, and you put the negative over the top of the leaf under glass, and leave it in the sun, and let photosynthesis do its work, and that's what you end up with.
How long did you have to leave that then to get that?
Usually, the English climate is so unpredictable. So sometimes it's just a couple of days, and sometimes it's 3 months.
Wow.
And the trouble is that you can't check it to
No.
see if you've got it at the right moment. Once you check it, you can never get the negative back in the same place again.
No, then
So
you'd end up with your multiple exposure thing, wouldn't you?
yeah,
Aha, I
and
hit
then
on something here.
yeah, it's really frustrating if you undo the whole construction at the wrong moment. But in general, it takes a couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah. I can see there's a lot of people in your images. So there's one just to your left there that again looks like something from Carnivale. Can you see it by the radiator?
Yeah,
It's been teasing me while we've been chatting. I was like, let's have a look at that one. Look at that. So that's a cyanotype again.
that's a cyanotype, and this is where I was experimenting with not putting the chemical on the whole. So the whole image itself is bigger. There's background
Yeah.
in it, but I experimented with just applying the chemical around where the person is.
Hmm.
So you get these lovely effects, like at the bottom where it just kind of fades away, or where you can see the brush strokes
She
coming
looks
out
like
of.
she's got a feather headdress on.
Yeah, it is. I like where you get these brush strokes coming out of the side of the person's face. It's actually a man.
Ah, that's
Right?
that. You're just so experimental. What is this something that you're going to keep pushing at?
Oh yeah, always. It's a good thing that I have another occupation that actually can feed all this.
Are you still doing? You're still doing the pianos and everything, are you?
Yeah, I am, but less and less.
How do you do that when you keep going back and forwards to Venice?
Well, I just tell people they have to wait.
Yeah. How? What did you do during lockdown? Because were you in Cranbrook during lockdown?
Yeah, I was. I left Venice just at the end of Carnivale, which is the end of February, and I left a bunch of stuff in the refrigerator, thinking I was going to be back in 2 weeks' time, and I couldn't then get back until I think it was mid-July, and I just stayed in lockdown. But I was able to go to work because I work on my own.
Yeah.
You know, I work on my own in pianos. I work on my own in the dark room, so I wasn't really bothering anyone.
Did you
So
make any
I'm
particular work during lockdown that was different, or in response to anything that you were experiencing?
I think I just became more experimental because I had more time. I thought, just if this doesn't work, who cares? Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
But the paper is expensive. I mean, I'll show you. I mean, just a sheet of this paper. It's all handmade paper, and it is about £5 each. So
Yeah, there's only so much experimenting you're prepared to do.
yeah, then you have to think, okay, well, maybe just leave that for now.
When
Yeah.
you're shooting out in Venice, I'm still a bit intrigued by this Venice thing, you can tell. Keep going back to it. How many films do you shoot film in your camera? Be lovely to see your camera. Have you got your camera there?
No, it's a digital camera.
Oh, you shoot with a digital camera.
Yeah.
Ah.
So I have no problem using a digital camera. It's much more flexible for what I do, and
And then
um,
how do you create the negatives
the
then?
negatives are done on an inkjet printer.
Right, and you
So
use acetates,
you use
presumably.
a special film that you can buy that's designed for actually that purpose. And
Ah,
so, it used to be when I first started out, when I first did these, I did these about 20 years ago in my garage, many years ago, and then I had to use an enlarger and everything, and it was really time consuming. But to be able to print them on an inkjet printer is a lot better.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I have no qualms about using technology where it actually serves me well.
No, no. So
Yeah,
you're using a digital camera.
yeah, I'm using this. It's a Nikon D5, which is a kind of top of the range.
Yeah, they're expensive
Yeah, they are expensive, and it's
and
also
heavy.
yeah, it's very heavy. I've got tennis elbow as a result of carrying this thing around. And then my other arm, one arm has tennis elbow, and the other arm is sort of permanently bent at a right angle from sort of holding onto the camera all day long from the other side. So I'm suffering from my arm.
We all suffer for our art, don't
Yeah,
worry, in
but
some
it's
way or another.
interesting. It's interesting taking photographs. You have to be careful what you do. What you do. I mean, I was taking some photographs at a fun fair in Tenterden, and these kids came up to me, and I was just taking pictures of the rides and things like that. Kids came up to me and said, "What are you taking pictures of?" I said, "Oh, I'm just taking pictures of the ride." As I was walking away, their father came up to me and started screaming at me, and accused me of taking pictures of his children, and he was really aggressive and quite violent. And I thought he was going to grab my expensive camera and throw it in the street. And said, "Let me see the images." And so I showed, and you could see there was no pictures of children or anything like
Mm.
that. But, you know, walking around taking pictures is sometimes a
Yeah,
little
and
bit,
you can understand that, can't you? In this day and
yeah,
age, you have to be super careful. I mean, once you take the picture, you own the copyright to that image, and it doesn't matter if it's someone else's picture. But obviously, there is that area of taking pictures of children that you need to be super careful of.
yeah. Another time I was at a music festival in France. Everybody around me was taking pictures of this singer who was a very beautiful singer. She looked sort of like Billie Holiday. Everybody around me
Mm.
was taking pictures. But suddenly she ran off the stage in the middle of a song. And it was very confusing why she'd done that. And a couple of minutes later, a security guy came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and told me to stop taking pictures. It was bothering me. And
Oh,
I felt terrible, actually. I felt really awful.
because presumably because you had a professional looking camera where they were probably
Yeah,
using their
yeah, and
phones,
they were mostly
big lens.
using phones, and I had this
Yeah,
thing with a big lens on it, and obviously she focused on that, and it was distracting her.
yeah.
And in fact, the rules in France are different. The person actually owns the copyright for their own image. So without a permission, I couldn't actually market that image.
No, whereas that's different here, isn't it?
It's different in every country. Yeah,
Yeah. What about Italy? Because obviously you've taken a lot of images, but
I
presumably
don't.
because people are masked, you can't see them
Yeah,
anyway.
they're not recognizable, fortunately.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know when I particularly love doing reportage, which is effectively what you're doing. The reportage photography, personally, it's something I love doing. But you do have to be very careful in this very litigious age, and also people are very conscious of their image now because of social media and how they're
Yeah,
represented and where that might be shown, etc. Yeah, I can understand that
yeah.
people would be sensitive.
I mean, I have occasionally gone up to people and said, "You have such an interesting face. Do you mind if I take a photograph of it?" And usually they're okay about it. I mean, they appreciate that I actually said something to them. And you get a different kind of image when you develop some kind of communication and relationship with the person you're taking the photograph of, rather than something you've taken from a long distance away with a really powerful lens.
Yeah, and the lens compresses it anyway, doesn't it? If you're that far away, it compresses the image slightly, so
Yeah,
you get a slightly
yeah,
different shape
yeah,
to the
yeah.
image. the further you are away.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think, it just comes down to ethics, doesn't it? And, if
Yeah,
we think about the ethics of these things and how it would make you feel and whether you're exploiting um, somebody for your own personal gain, as long as you consider all those things, then
yeah.
yeah,
When I take pictures, I mean, I take pictures in London sometimes of people sleeping rough and things like that. I always leave money in there because I figure that giving them a model.
yeah, giving them a uh, the royalty
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
up front. As the
yeah,
mother of an artist and a photographer, I would want a photographer to tell me they had photographed my children and give me the pictures. There you are.
yeah,
That's the view, and I think that's as I say, it's ethics. I know I work with students, and often they come up with scenarios. A lot of them do photography, and a lot of them come up with scenarios where it's taking images, reportage, and I have to have this conversation of ethics with them quite frequently about, well, are you doing that for your benefit or for their benefit?
yeah.
And you know, how do you think you would feel if you were in that position? And then it changes the perspective.
My father took it to the extreme when I mean, must have been 20 years ago. He went on a trip to China. And he took lots of pictures of Chinese peasants in the countryside, and he used to ask him to sign a model release for him. I think they had no idea what they were doing.
Well, we just about I've lost track of the days, but we are on day 29. But and about day 20, I can't remember. Darren, please forgive me. I was talking to Darren Buss, who's also a photographer, and he's taken lots of images of people in our local town during lockdown. And to be able to use those images in an exhibition, I said to him, you must go and ask them for their permission. And he got release forms from each one of them to say, and some people actually said no.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a thing now. You have to be, the legal side of our life as artists has to be considered. And I know when I'm doing teaching and courses, etc., I always talk about all the legal side of it as well. And you have to be up on the legal side, don't
yeah,
you?
we do. Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
because it's changing all the time. Um,
Fortunately, most of the photographs I do, you can't recognize anybody.
no,
So,
yeah, exactly.
so,
So
um,
and also you're at a festival, which I think is people have already decided to be there for a celebration and
well,
an
exactly.
experience.
Especially Carnivale, it brings out the most exhibitionist tendencies of people
Yeah.
from all over the world. I mean, it's unbelievable the kind of poses that people strike.
So you take at Carnivale, presumably you take thousands of images every year.
Yeah, I do.
Do you archive them? Do you keep them in some sort of archive?
I do, yeah, yeah.
Because that's precious.
Yeah, it is. And I have it backed up in about four different places. So I'm
You see, I
terrified.
was getting anxious there. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I know, I'm terrified.
a
On
computer could crash.
two different cloud storage things, three different external hard drives. I'm not
Good.
putting, you know,
It's such
yeah,
a shame we can't see inside your studio because that'd be fascinating. I know
yeah,
we did try, but
yeah.
the Wi-Fi signal isn't.
I'll tell you a few things about how these processes work. Just
Yeah, that'd be great.
for example, um, so the I think this is a full size negative.
So that's the like you said, you do that on this laser printer. You
Yeah,
create
from
that
an
laser.
inkjet printer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I now use. I'm just going to show you something. No, I don't know where I put it, but I now use a UV unit and a light and a vacuum press to expose these images because the sunlight in the UK is too unreliable. When you have a UV unit, you can calculate everything. You can repeat the same thing again and again. If you rely on the sun shining in England, it's just not working.
Yes, I have. I said to you earlier, didn't I, that I had done some experimentation with the plates that have the light reactive material on, and then I use negatives. And I used one of those boxes that you said. They look like what the double glazing salesmen come round with, don't they? They're kind of like the unit that they come round with their windows that they show you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, that's what they look like. For anyone who's watching, they kind of visualise a double glazing salesman arriving with a fake unit.
Don't think I look.
You don't look like it. You don't look like. You look like a very lovely man who repairs pianos. Don't worry. You don't look like a double glazing salesman. Not that that's a bad thing for anyone who's watching who might be a double glazing salesman. But
no. I want to be a very nice double glazing.
I have a very old house, so we're not allowed to have that kind of thing here. So don't anyone come around trying to sell me. But I really had envy of the person who showed me that box. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Because you can control it and you can almost do it like an enlarger, can't you? Where you can time the exposure.
Yeah, to the second.
Yeah.
But each process, the exposures are different. Each negative, the exposures are different. So I keep meticulous records of everything, and because sometimes, as I say, some of the processes. For example, I'll show you. This is another gum bichromate, and looking at the back, there are 15 layers, and and you have to get it in registration, exact registration every time, otherwise it can go wrong. And so I've written exactly what sort of proportions I've mixed the watercolor pigments with the photosensitive chemicals, and how I applied it, how long I exposed each image, and it's really complicated. And to just show you the difference, this is the same image done with two different colors.
Yeah, so this left one is a cyanotype, and the other one is the gum bichromate with the 15 layers built up gradually on it. Do you do additions? Because you're saying you keep all the information, so I'm presuming you do additions then.
Yeah, I do. And I have some that I do additions that just run off of an ink, inkjet printer.
How many so do you make the intention like an original printmaker? Do you do that and go, oh, I intend to do, so this will be a limited edition of 15 or 20?
Yeah, but what I know is that everybody cheats. You just enlarge it by 2 millimeters, and then you can start the edition all over.
Again, ethics, David.
Yeah.
Ethics.
But the things that I do with the old processes, they're not additions, because each one is unique. They're all different.
Because you'd never be able to repeat it, would you?
No. And sometimes I try, and I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. You really don't.
No, that's the magic. That's what I love about the photography that you do in the camera and in the dark room. Effectively, it's magic. It's alchemy.
It is alchemy. That's exactly right. And so, and the trouble is, alchemists went down such a strange sort of path. I hope I don't, that eventually led to madness. I hope the same thing doesn't happen to me.
Just keep that mask on and wear the rubber outfits.
Exactly.
In your studio. And you'll be okay. We've got some questions. We've got quite a lot of questions. Let's have a little look at these. Can we have a demonstration of you creating amazing materials exploration? Oh, can we have a demonstration of you creating amazing materials exploration?
Well,
I don't think we can do a demonstration
no, the only
this
thing
time.
I can do, I have videoed some of the processes, and I've meant to put them on my Instagram feed as stories, but I just haven't got around to it.
Well, if you send them to us, Sophie will put, or not all of them, but send one or two of them to us, and then Sophie, who's asking me, runs the Facebook account for us, and Molly runs the Instagram. We can get them to put some up for people so they can have a look.
We'll do
Yeah,
that.
send
I'm
that.
so terrified of, when I use my phone, the video thing on my phone, I'm so terrified of dropping my phone into all these chemicals.
Yeah, there you go. So, Sophie, you
Okay.
can't, but David's going to send us a couple of films, and
Yeah.
we can then post them for people so they can see them.
Yeah.
Are these produced in the darkroom? Oh, I think we've answered that question. So yes, you do
Well,
use the darkroom in
it
part
is
of
a
the
dark
process.
room. It's a dark room, but it doesn't have to be as dark as a traditional dark room because these chemicals are much less light sensitive than modern photo processing chemicals. So you can work in a sort of dim light quite safely.
Yeah, whereas in the when I was doing it, you'd have to have
Yeah,
complete. I had a thing stuck around the door, so there wasn't the tiniest bit of seepage of
exactly.
light.
No, so it's a little bit more pleasant because you're not sort of feeling around in the dark.
Yeah, yeah. So it is a dark. It's a kind of ambient to dark room,
Well,
a darkish room.
it's my garage with the garage door closed. So,
Yeah,
a
it's
little
a
bit of,
darkish room.
yeah, a little bit of light, and it gets in. And I have a couple of safe lights on when I'm working so that I can, but
I love Annie because she says it exactly how it is. Do you photograph Venice as it is, tourists, hideous big ships, or do you romanticize it?
well, that's an interesting question, but I will answer that. I don't romanticize it. For me, because I've been there so much, I've got under the skin of Venice, and I know what it really is. And that's what Venice really isn't is the tourists and the big ships. It's walking around the canals at night. It's wandering around aimlessly in the back streets. I belong to a rowing club. It's going rowing down the Grand Canal. That's what really is Venice.
When you
And
went in after lockdown, was it very quiet?
it wasn't as quiet as I expected, but there were no Americans, there were no Chinese, there were mostly just French and German tourists, and it was a lot quieter. But actually, I never go to the tourist spots anyway. When you live there, you kind of learn how to avoid them completely.
Mm.
Venice becomes a completely different place.
Yeah, yeah. So you're not kind of spending your time in St Mark's Square all the time, and
No, and I feel sorry for people who think that that's Venice because and what I would suggest to anybody who goes to Venice, sleep during the day, set your alarm for 1 in the morning, and wander around Venice during the night. It's perfectly safe, and then you will see what it's like when you look down these sort of dark canals and these light, dimly lit passageways. That's when you feel what the place really is.
would you recommend people go for Carnivale?
Well, you've got to be prepared for enormous crowds, but it's really interesting. But it is absolutely packed. I
So
mean,
not at the moment.
it's a real bum fight. Yeah, I mean, they shut down Carnivale early this year because of COVID. Suddenly it just stopped, and they told everybody to go home with no explanation.
Be
Yeah,
interesting to see what happens in 2021.
yeah. Well, I hope. Yeah, I hope. I mean, a lot of the festivals have been canceled. There's a wonderful festival every year called Redentore, where they have fireworks on the big canal. And, it's absolutely fabulous, and they canceled it this year. Couldn't have a crowd.
Thank goodness you've got lots of stuff in your archive. So you've got lots of
Yeah,
things.
yeah. I mean, and I actually sometimes when I have nothing better to do, I look at pictures I took 5, 6 years ago, and I think, hey, that's not so bad. I think I can do something with it. It's really interesting to revisit things.
That's what these moments do, isn't it?
Yeah,
They give us the opportunity to just reflect a little bit.
yeah. I mean, I recently had another experience. I mean, with the pianos, I built a piano which was commissioned for somebody. I made this piano in 1995, and I was 45 years old then. And I recently bought it back, and I signed it then and dated it. And I recently bought it back a couple of months ago from the original client who got married, had children, didn't use it anymore. And I was kind of looking inside the piano, and there was my signature from 1995. And it was so weird. I thought, another 20 that 25 years ago, another 25 years, I'm probably not going to be around. It was a
Don't dwell
really,
on that.
yeah, it was a weird experience seeing the kind of ghost of
Yeah,
something I'd done in the past, quite some time ago.
yeah,
And so it's interesting revisiting things in that way. And
yeah.
you think, maybe that isn't so bad, and maybe that is crap.
I'm a great one for an archive. I keep things, and I was just actually clearing out my plan chest this week, just because it needed tidying. You have to do that every now and again, every 10 years, and I found things from 10, 15 years ago in there, and I was like, wow, goodness, we've come on so much since then. But I really appreciate that that was the starting point. You really value it, don't you, when you
Yeah,
look back? That's what
absolutely,
started
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And you see the germ of what you were trying to do right at the
Yeah,
very beginning. Yeah.
yeah,
You've only got
absolutely.
one plan chest, and I've got four of them, each one is planned.
It's a huge plant chest. It's
Yeah,
enormous, and we're
yeah,
trying to move it from a room in the house to into my office. And both my husband and I, we go past it and we look at it. We go, yeah, tomorrow.
yeah.
We haven't kind of brought ourselves to actually. It's
You
going to
have to take all the
dismantle,
drawers.
but
Yeah, you have to take the drawers out. That's the only way.
yeah, yeah. That's why I was empty. So I was emptying all the drawers, and
Mm.
it was like a lovely trip down memory lane. But um, it was really good. It really reminded me about where it all started, and what
Yeah,
the ambition was then. Really made me
yeah,
appreciate.
yeah. No, no, absolutely. Yeah.
So Annie says, beautiful simplified prints, so atmospheric. Love them. Thank you. That's a statement. Lovely. Do you have a dark room in Venice as well as here?
I do. I'm so lucky. I
You
mean,
are very lucky.
my apartment is on the second floor, but the dark room is on the ground floor. And when they have the floods, it gets flooded. It gets about 30 centimeters of water in it. So whenever I leave, I always raise everything up off the floor.
Is that
Mm.
getting worse? Are you seeing the flooding getting worse?
Yeah,
Oh, so
yeah,
that's tragic, isn't it?
yeah. But it's also, I mean, I have to say, it's actually pretty interesting.
Hmm.
You go into a restaurant and you go into the restaurant and you sit down, and then suddenly the water starts seeping in, and then people take off their shoes, and you're still being served your pizza and spaghetti, and then the waiters arrive with Wellington. Then the water's up to your ankles, and then it's halfway up your legs, and people are still
They're
eating.
still sitting there.
And
That's amazing. That's so resilient. They're just so
yeah,
used to it. Do you think that's
Venice,
how we'll get with COVID then? We'll just be like, put a mask on, put another mask on. Just get
yeah,
used to We'll just get used to it.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, we just become resigned to it. That's life. I suppose you do. We become resigned to these things eventually, don't we?
I mean, what I wish I'd seen was Venice during lockdown because there was nobody in the streets. I mean, my friends described it where you would go into St. Mark's and you'd be the only person there. And you can imagine it, and the canals were completely clear and silent. There were no gondolas, no vaporettos, and just the beauty and the beauty of Venice was just there, and you had it all to yourself. Can you
Oh.
imagine?
Did you? I bet you wanted to get out there.
I did, but there was no way I could do
No.
it. Yeah, I mean, and you could only, you're only allowed out of your house if you had a special permit.
Yeah.
For one reason or another.
Yeah. Same as in France and Spain, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You were
yeah,
questioned if you left the house.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's such a shame, isn't it? I mean, I went up to London just after lockdown had stopped, and I said it was like Day of the Triffids meets zombie apocalypse. I was terrified. If there was a woman standing outside Pret a Manger and she wanted to give me a map, and I was absolutely certain she was a zombie, and I was not going anywhere near her. She was going to like consume me or something because it was the only person I'd seen. I was like, no,
Yeah,
no, you are probably an alien. I'm not prepared to talk to you.
yeah,
It was a surreal experience,
yeah,
and I was like, this is amazing because there's no one here and I can go in all the shops. And then I realised all the shops were closed.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there was
no,
no actual advantage, and then it made me feel overwhelmingly sad. I felt
yeah,
overwhelmingly sad because
yeah,
London has been part of my life forever,
yeah,
and it felt like it was kind of like fading, and that was I was quite emotional. It was really sad.
That's what my friends in Venice said, the same thing. They said it was beautiful and sad, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing to see it without the clutter of the tourists, but in another
Yeah.
way, it was sad because it felt like something was dying.
Yeah.
And when it's been part of you for all of your life, yeah, it's
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Fran says, with a digital camera, do you restrict yourself to the amount of shots you take?
No. I think that I recently, when I last checked on my computer, there was something like about a quarter of a million images.
Oh my word. You're going to be busy for a long time.
Yeah, you can imagine if I was using analog film, how just how impossible that.
Did you ever use analog film?
Yeah, and I also used. I'll show you something else. Um, I, I use analog film in these old cameras from the turn of the century. This is an old stereo camera. So it takes two images side by side, the same distance apart as your eyes. And do you remember those old stereo viewers we used to have as children?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is obviously an analog camera from about 1910, French made one, and that. So I've used these occasionally.
And
Just
where
to
do you
see.
get the film from? Is it a
Yeah,
specialist supplier?
there are specialist suppliers who 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 make these old film sizes for people who are crazy like me and want to do everything the hard way.
I think I'm equally crazy. Um,
Yeah.
Sophie says, how much is the scuba leaf print if it's for sale?
Yes, it is. It's 400 pounds frame.
£400. Sophie, that is a bargain. I'll show you how you can contact David in a minute. Annie's saying, I missed the beginning. Are you a self-taught photographer? You can answer that question.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think, I learned a lot at my father's knee, I would say, but largely I'm self-taught, and I'm very curious person, and I like doing things in the most complicated way possible. So I've just done a lot of research on my own, developing my own techniques, understanding all these processes. So I would say I largely am self-taught. There's so much crossover. Everything in my life is all linked. My musical instrument work, my photography, my travel, my interest in old antiques and old things, music. It's all linked together.
Yeah, and you were saying you did that film course when you were in San Francisco.
Yeah, well, don't ask me to tell you anything.
You probably absorbed some of it without you even realising it.
Yeah, maybe.
So what key piece of advice would you give those just starting out?
Be prepared to throw away things. I
Really
remember
good. Really good piece of
at
advice.
university, I had a life drawing class, and the lecturer said, the first thing I'm going to do is teach you how to throw away your work. At the end of every day, you're going to have to tear your work in half and throw it in the bin.
We've heard this
And,
before. I think in
yeah,
one of the other previous, someone said that. I'm
yeah,
sure in one of the previous talks.
and I think that there's a lot to be said for that, because you cannot progress if you kind of overwork everything and you just keep going down the same path. You got to be prepared to make a lot of mistakes, experiment, be fearless, and then you make much more progress. I
Yeah.
mean, it can be really frustrating, but I think in any artistic endeavor that's true.
Yeah, that's that thing about I have a fear of the known.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
have a fear of the unknown, I have a fear of the known.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
brutal though, making you like rip everything up. I can't remember
Yeah.
who said that. It
I
might have
mean,
been
this
Annie.
professor was something else again. He said, "You all have lazy eyes. I'm going to spank you unless you stop. You
Yeah,
cannot
maybe
even
we'll just
throw
brush
it."
over that. Lazy eyes. We all have lazy eyes though. We have lazy minds, I think, as well. We just kind of like, our minds go seeking something that's familiar and give you the familiar back, don't they? And we need to be a bit more conscious and work harder at that.
Well, it's interesting when you meet people who aren't visual, and you'll both be walking down the street, and you'll say, "Did you see that?" And the person, "What? I didn't see anything." And there are different kinds of people who take in little details around them all the time, and there are people who are in a different headspace. That's all. They're just different kind of people.
I find photographers particularly are incredibly aware, sensorily aware of the minutiae.
Yeah.
Something when I've interviewed photographers that comes across quite a lot, that they see the like really intense detail of things and pick up things that other people it just doesn't resonate with them. They don't see it at all.
But it makes you a pain in the bum to go anywhere.
It does.
Walking around, hang on, just give me a second. I'm just going to take this, and then 5 minutes later, I'll catch up with you. I can be really annoying.
That's a familiar thing, isn't it? Yeah, you carry on. I'm
Yeah,
just going to take a photograph of
yeah,
this. Yeah, we're like the slow puppy at the back.
yeah, yeah.
Right, we're going to just show your page in the magazine so people know how to contact you, especially Sophie, who's interested in that print, the leaf print. So there we go. Let's put this up on the screen. So you are in the magazine and you are on page 48. There we are. And if people want to contact you, there's your email there. That's the website that we were just looking at. And you've got Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. There we go, people. So if you want to get in touch with David, that's how you go about it. Because I think your work is just stunning. And also, on Sunday, David will be delivering quite a vast number of these works to me at Ballantyne's Hotel in Hastings, where we'll be having an exhibition. So if anyone wants to see it in the flesh, the hotel is completely COVID compliant. You have to wear a mask, obviously, when you go in. There's hand sanitizer. It's all only a maximum of 6 people in the room at one time, but the room's huge. So yeah, get down to Ballantyne's Hotel in Hastings in the gallery. In the hotel, don't go in the spa or the gym. You won't find David in there. Or a gallery.
I don't want my things hanging up next to the jacuzzi.
You'll find him by the nail, lady. No, you're just off the reception. Is the Beauport Gallery. So it's very historic house. It's been there since the 1700s. Incredible history, and the gallery is inside the main hotel. Beautiful space, high ceilings. I definitely recommend it. So if you want to see David's work in the flesh, as it were, then you can go there and see it. And it's there for 3 months, isn't it? So they've got plenty of time to get down there and have a look at that. And it'll also be on the Pure Arts Group website. So if anyone wants to buy any pieces, then you can go on there. You can all purchase online with COVID-safe delivery, etc. So, yes, thank you so much, David Winston.
Oh, thank you. That's really interesting. Nice to chat.
I know. This is the second time we've done this, isn't it? We did the chat at Wing and we heard a little bit.
Well, we had to wear masks, I remember, actually.
We did it as a mask, didn't we? We wore masks. But they were eye masks. We wore eye masks, didn't we? We did it as Carnivale and we had eye masks. This time we're all having to wear masks over our mouth and nose. But no, it was such a treat when we had you exhibit with us, and I really wanted to hear more about your process. So just fascinating, and it just brings it all to life now. The more you know about how someone's journey and how they've explored, experimented, it gives the work such provenance. And no, it's been absolutely fascinating. And thank you everyone who's been watching and asked all the questions. That really helps.
Thank you whoever's been watching.
I love the studio interaction where people are asking questions. They're really, really interested in all of the artists. So tomorrow is day 30. That's the last day. Because we said 30 days of September. So tomorrow is day 30. And tomorrow we will be interviewing Jeremy Bear and Maria Turner. So Maria Turner will be on a live premiere at 6:45 in the evening, and Jeremy will be actually here because his Wi-Fi is not working. So he'll actually be in the studio here with me, and I'll be interviewing him live with his wife Griselda, who's an art curator. So that's going to be fascinating. That's completely different. And then on the 1st of October, don't panic people, 5:30, we'll be having the party. So it's National Poetry Day on the 1st of October. Did I say November? Anyway, 1st of October. And so we've got Ed Boxall reading poetry and Julia Dash. We've got some more live music from Tanya Perry, who performed at the Private View. And we've got Nadine doing a wonderful full moon meditation. It's all kind of come together on the 1st of October. So, yeah, 2 more days. And then I'm going to go and lie in a darkened room for a short while. I've absolutely loved it. I've had the time of my life, but I do need a rest now. So tomorrow's going to be great, and then the party on Thursday, and then, yeah, little break before we come back with the interviews, back to the normal weekly interviews in end of October, when I'll be interviewing. I've got Les Williams who's the president of the SGFA. I've got Sue Jelly, who was the president of the SWA. Geeta Joshi. Hopefully Geeta's been watching today. She was one of your invites, wasn't she? So the curator, Geeta Joshi, curator salon. Yeah, lots of it. And Gary James is coming back to talk to us about Instagram and social media marketing. So yeah, brilliant. So thank you, David.
Thank you for all your hard work.
We're not jealous at all about the fact that you'll be going back to Venice very soon.
Well, that's good. I don't want you to do it.
No, I'm just trying to not channel that. And we'll see you all tomorrow. So
Bye-bye.
we'll say bye for now. Bye.